with Stacy Halal, Joe Bill, Elise Rodriguez, and special guests Danielle Orrantia and Felipe Ortiz.
All right, welcome. It is a Friday, so it's time for Inside Improv, where we talk about things related to improv, both on the stage and off and behind the scenes. I'm super excited about our international guests this week. But before we bring them on, let's bring on Mr. Joe Bill. Hi, Joe.
Buenos dias, Stacy. Está viernes. Es tiempo para Inside Improv.
Nice. That was really good. Very impressed.
¿Dónde está mi arepas?
Where is my rice? What is repas?
Where's my...
Oh my God.
Arepas.
Arepas. Is it a, what is it?
Arepas. It's
food.
It's like
it's a dish.
Easy.
I know. I'm terrible. Okay, hold on. Before I make it worse, let's bring on...
Maybe...
We'll bring on our co-host who does actually speak Spanish, Elise Rodriguez. Hello. Hi, Elise.
Hello. Arepas are just like eating a cloud of love.
Is it
with cheese in the middle?
Is it dough, like kind of
cornmeal?
It is corn. It is cornmeal, but it's made into a pocket, and then inside there's cheese. Typically, there's cheese.
Ay, Elise.
That's a Venezuelan arepa. That's a Venezuelan
because
arepa.
I was in Colombia, and it was first of all, I lived in Miami, so I've had a lot of Venezuelan arepas, which are white. The Venezuelan arepas are white.
Okay, all right. Let me bring on our guests before we make it worse. Okay. Here they are. Here are our Colombian guests.
Are you telling me that this is what is an arepa then? Because no, wait. You're about to turn my world upside down.
Let me introduce them, Elise, so that they can actually tell us. So first, let's welcome our guest, Danielle Orrantia. I loved how your name is Orrantia. It felt very projected out, and it made me feel powerful to say it. And Felipe Ortiz. So welcome. So glad to have you both. And I am terribly sorry. I do speak some French, but I know very little Spanish. So to start, we need to know, I have had arepas in Miami, but I would like, now that you've sort of described them, I want to hear, Felipe, you were disgusted by Elise's description.
I can't believe this.
You tell us?
I feel horrified. I'm horrified that I just got this wrong.
Well, arepa is basically a corn tortilla, but thick. And then you can have it in many different ways and with different types of corn. So not only like a pocket, but also like a thick tortilla where you put stuff on top, or alone is very cool as well.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Danielle?
I thought he was going to tell me it was a shake. Thank God.
No. Okay. Danielle, do you agree with that definition, or do we have 5 different definitions?
There are so many different types of arepas. You know, there's some in Venezuela, some.
Yeah.
Here we have a sweet arepa made with sweet corn and salty arepa. Maybe you could get really creative when it comes to arepas.
Amazing. Well, I will say that I had the honor of spending some time in Colombia about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago now. And it was the best food that I ever ate. All of it. We couldn't eat enough while we were there. It was so good. And then we went to the coffee region that I always describe as just one of the most beautiful. It's like paradise, and the birds look like giant flowers, and the giant flowers look like birds.
Oh my gosh.
And like when you speak, it almost feels like your words get sucked into silence in the most peaceful way. So my experience in Colombia was very, very lovely, and I would love to get back there. So you two live both in Bogota, and did you meet there in Bogota?
Yes, we met here and we live here.
And how did you two meet each other and come to start working together?
In the theater, I guess that we met through a friend, and then we started doing different workshops and different trainings, and then we started playing, and that was it. Then we were friends.
Was it with improv specifically that you started, or did you meet in a more broad theater context?
Improv. Yeah, it was improv, I guess.
Great. But you both
Colombia takes its improv really seriously, by the way. It's so amazing. I like when I was there and I went to the festival that we were at together, actually. I was in shock at how much like it's taken so seriously in Colombia, and I was really impressed with how like we do not take improv this seriously in this country. It was the audience was very appreciative of the performance in the theater, and I felt like I wasn't so used to that in most cities that I've been to in the United States. Everybody was so appreciative of the shows, and I like that. That was nice.
How long?
Yeah, there is a big improv culture here, mainly in Bogota. Like the last time with some improv people that we counted the groups, it was around 54 groups just in Bogota. So yeah, in the past 10 years, it's been a very big boom of improv everywhere.
Yeah, so when I was there about 20 years ago, I wasn't aware of any improv because I usually travel and hire people locally. And so we brought Will Luera, actually, and Will was able to improvise in both English and Spanish. So would you say it's really just been the 10 years? Is that about the span of this boom? Were there some institutions there longer or groups that have been there in the 20-year range at all?
Yeah, I started in 95. And I kind of created the first improv group that there was in the country, and I didn't know that improv existed. So we were like the first ones doing improv for a long time. But let's say that the big boom it's been in the last 10 years.
That's great. And what sparked that direction for you when it wasn't something that was there already? What brought you to be aware of improv and want to start doing it?
It was a very crazy experience because I was part of a theater group in the university. And the director used to use improv as a tool for creating the shows. And with a friend that was part of the theater group, we were just playing a lot with the exercises and doing stuff. And one day we came with the idea to the director that we wanted to do a show that was completely improvised. And it was like our crazy idea. And the director said to us, like, yeah, do it. And the next time we had a rehearsal, he said to us, to the rest of the group, okay, these guys have something to show you. And we were like panicking, like, what? And then he said, just do what you told me you wanted to do. So we started playing, we started doing crazy stuff. we created a code that was like every time we ran out of ideas or something, we will turn off the light and then turn on the light again and continue doing stuff. And we were there for 40 minutes doing crazy stuff. I remember that. And it was just spontaneity, pure spontaneity coming out. Boom, 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 boom. And then he gave us some ideas, and he said, like, hey, you should put like a more structured show together and try it in a place for storytellers and musicians in the university. So we did. And after like 6 months or 4 months of being trying that structure in the university, one day he came with a set of copies and he said, hey, this might be interesting for you. And it was Kit Johnston's Improv. So when we started reading that book, it was like thinking, it was like finding a lot of ideas that we had, but we didn't have words for them yet, and they were written there.
Yes.
And there was a lot of stuff that we kind of knew what we were doing, and it was very clear there. And I remember thinking that this guy stole our ideas. Just like 20 years before, but he did.
Yes.
And the first time I saw an improv group was in 99 or 2000, maybe like 4 years or 5 years after being doing improv. So
wow.
I think that's why I kind of have like or at the beginning we had like a very different style. And when we started traveling and we went like to Europe, people were like, where did you learn this from? What is it? What is
so
this
what
that
was
you
different?
do?
Yeah,
I'm
how
so
would
curious.
you describe
what was
the
different?
style difference? Yeah.
I think mainly we had also like a lot of physical theater background because the director was kind of physical, or is still very physical in his work. He studied with Grotowski and is very, very physical. And the background for us was like clowning, slapstick, stage fighting. So we were using the body a lot to improv. We were playing with imaginary objects and spaces. And something that is still very important for me is the clown aspect of it. Playing with the mistakes, breaking the fourth wall, and just creating this moment with the audience, with the lights, with the music. And it's like a way of understanding scene work, no? Like everything that you do on a stage is only made if all the elements are connected. You need the audience, the lights, the music, the performers, light designer. All that is involved creates this moment. So I really love to play with the elements for real. So that's where the clown becomes a very important tool for improv.
And in your style that you all developed on your own, did it tend toward comedy or toward drama or toward storytelling that includes both of those things?
I guess at the beginning was very focused on comedy. And because also we were trying to speak English in that time, and we didn't understand very much what people were saying, and so the body became like our main tool, and that led us to a lot of mistakes. So we had to play a lot from the clown part of it. Right. And I guess that is still there, and and now I guess it's a mix. Like the show we do with Daniel is very strong in comedy, but it's very poetic. We go to drama, and I guess now we can find like a very cool variety within the show, and we look for it. We seek for a show that has variety, that is funny, that can be sad, that is poetic, and it mixes also like clowning and physical work, of course.
I love it. We have a video of you juggling here somewhere. And when John, who's doing our tech here, also juggles, and so when he came across this, he's like, "No, that's really hard. You don't understand. You don't understand what he's about to do. That's really hard to do."
That's great.
It's a really nice trick.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because he has to go from underhand to overhand.
Yeah.
Yes,
Laying down.
and then yes.
Laying down's hard.
Yay, which is great. I like it.
I think what you're saying is so important, because that's why I'm so happy that I'm not happy about the pandemic in any way, but I'm happy that the pandemic brought us all into a space where we can talk this way, because I always talk about how when I first started improv, I was told by a teacher, not like, I did a physical scene and a teacher told me, don't do slapstick. We don't do slapstick. And that is, I feel like especially for me as a Latina, like that is where our humor is a lot of the time. Like we're very physical. We are very kind of big, and it's so important for us to hear perspectives from people like, for example, like me, that speaks directly to me. Like, no, that is part of the art, and that is part of what we do, and that's part of the fun and beauty of it.
It's my favorite part of improv is storytelling that includes all of those things as well. And I feel most moved by that, not being afraid to go to poignant or meaningful places, but then also to be able to release the tension as needed through laughter is definitely my favorite. And I came to improv through film, then wanting to have an ensemble create a film together. So and back then, my origin story I thought was different, but yours is more different, Felipe, because back then most people started with short form and then they would evolve to long form. And I was one of the first people to really start with long form, because I was coming at it from that filmmaking perspective. And now lots of people come at it from all kinds of directions. But I don't want to ignore you anymore over there, Daniel. So I would love to hear a little bit about how you discovered impro, and you do acting now. Did you do acting in general back? Any kind of theatrical training?
For me, it's never been a separate thing. Like acting and improvising for me is the same thing, because you're acting.
Yeah.
But my beginning, I guess, now I had this moment a few days ago, because my drama teacher from school died recently. And I had a lot of people writing to me, like saying, I'm sorry, I know that. And he was a very important person in getting me into the theater arts. And then, like, remembering him and things that we used to do, I had a lot of exciting memories of doing things that were improvised as a game. Like, we loved like pulling his leg by just improvising on top of plays that we were rehearsing. So we will just keep on being the characters, but we will just play around. and he started to love that better than things that were scripted. Yeah. So then he was just giving us little pieces of script then from that we will build our own version of the stories, but starting from a particular script or an idea that he will give us. And for me, that was like, I just wanted to do that all the time. I don't know why. and it has been the same thing all the time in my life. Like, I don't know why I am doing improvisation. It's not something that I chose. It's more like I feel like there was an other way to go. Like, there was like this need to do that. And when I was doing it, it was so freeing to to be able to be anything or anybody. And in this particular show that we perform with Felipe, and a lot of the work that we have been doing with Felipe, I was also thinking, it's very curious to think like, how will it be to be, for example, a lamp? How does that feel to be a lamp, or to be an orange, or to be an object? And see how you are everything in a way. For me, it's in the pandemic, I've seen like a very spiritual side of improvisation that has connected me with everything. Like through improvisation, I could be anything that I want. And in this, I say spiritual side is because I start to feel that I'm part of everything. Like, I could be a plant, I could be an object, I could be a villain, I could be a hero, I could be anything. And there's no like restriction or things that are stopping me or making me feel like, or judgmental about it.
I mean, I think it sounds crazy to say, but I think in the US, like, the acting part is not emphasized as much universally as would be helpful. And I think in other parts of the globe, the understanding that the acting is so essential, because I always say that we're both writing and acting simultaneously. And I think a lot of people are writing and they're thinking of clever things to say in words and interacting through their words and leaving their bodies out of the equation. So
that's very interesting when you think about it in music. Like, when you see jazz improvisation, for example, they're amazing. But in order to get there, they first master their instrument. They first are study music and the structure of music and harmony. And then they just go insane and break it and they put it back again. So I think there's a lot of that in improvisation too. Like, we do.
So Americans basically just pick up a trumpet and
exactly. Exactly.
Mastering it.
But it's funny because Del Close, was an actor and he was obsessed with jazz, very much so, that relationship. And if you've ever seen the film, I don't know if any of you have, In the Shadows of Motown. Has anybody seen that film?
No.
So it's a documentary on all the studio musicians that played under all the big singers who came out of Motown. And it was always this same band. And really, they'd smoke weed and jam. And they were improvising all the music. And then they didn't ever get credit for being the heart of all of those records. But when they talk about playing together, it sounds exactly like an ensemble working together in improvisation. It had that same energy.
I would also mention that, I mean, Del was like a carnival performer and like did fire eating and did like all of this stuff, which was like mischief and all the crazy shit that he came from. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's this intellectual, play to the top of your intelligence, like all of this shit.
Right.
I mean, it just speaks to, I think in America, we learn improv to begin with and we say, this is what it is and this is what it will be and it will not be anything else. But touring around, like touring around and getting to play with these guys, I studied with Del and then I was lucky to learn theater sports and this stuff. But and even a lot of people that I first learned the Herald with, that first started to study with Del. There's some people that are very snobby. This is how we're supposed to improvise. And, I've talked about this before. I want to be able to do all the types of improv. And so one of the reasons I was excited to bring these guys on, I mean, I've become very good friends with both Felipe and Danielle, and have done a number of different shows. But the greatest theater sports match is 2 matches I ever played was when Lee White and we were in Berlin. Lee White and I were a team, and Danielle and Felipe were a team. So the Germans are very structured in how it's supposed to go. So we were one-on-one, and all 4 of us were in every scene. So when it was time for me and Lee to do a scene, here comes Felipe and Danielle. And if it was time for Felipe and Danielle, here comes me and Lee. And the Germans were like, and so it's a tournament. And in the tournament, we beat them in overtime by 1 point. And then we met in the championship, and then they beat us by 1 point. And the Germans, they were completely thrown off by the chaos because we weren't doing it right. But They loved us because we were irreverent. We were messing around, just like Felipe was talking about how they started. Like, I don't know what we're doing, but we'll just do it. And it's and everything that you can use in improv, we all used, and we all supported each other. And when it was mine and Lee's scene, these guys came to make us look good. When it was their scene, we came to make them look good. And to me, that was one of the highlights of my entire improv career. And there's a picture I sent to Lee, to John, of Felipe and Lee doing a sleeping scene. I don't know if you can get to it, John. It's on the Facebook.
On the Facebook chat, we could probably get it.
Yeah.
Well, while we're looking for that, I do want to share this commercial we came across that has a familiar face in it. We took the music off because we weren't sure if it was copywritten, so it has our theme song music. So here's
Which is a great song.
Okay.
it definitely makes it less sexy. Oh.
With the music, it's so
She works great with that music.
so good.
He's a little less sexy. It's a little bizarre to see. Yeah, you're falling in love to that bizarre.
It felt more like an improv scene.
It
I'm falling a little bit here.
Yes.
I think you've done a few commercials. Is there a lot of production in Bogota?
Yeah. Well, recently it's coming and going because of the quarantine, but I think it's rolling. I've done 3 this year.
That's great.
One that was a big campaign, like doing maybe 7 or 8 small commercials, and others for other products.
That's great. And then there was a big event, Joe, that you referred to for a physical theater that.
Oh, so Felipe, when the circus stuff that you do, during the pandemic, you guys got to go in the big theater in Bogota and to stream a show or film a show, or how did that work?
We did last year. We recorded 2 shows. One, it's like a show based on migration, and the other one is a solo show that I have. Like a clown, buffoon, physical theater, improv solo show. But those were in big theaters and were recorded and edited to be online. And then just a couple of months ago, we had the big chance to be in a very big theater performing one of our shows for real audience. So that was really cool.
How many people were able to come?
500, but the theater is like for 1,800 seats or 600 seats, but they have like a long distance between. Yeah, like.
How did that feel?
Ooh, amazing!
Oh, good.
That was really cool. Also, because this show, we created this show during the pandemic, so we did the premiere, recording it and showing it just like online show, but then having the chance to do it with audience and to see if the show really works, and it did, luckily. Was really cool, and just having such a big audience and being that big theater after 1 year and a half was really cool.
And what is your...
And there's so much...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Elise. Ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say that... No, you. I was going to say that there's so much going on in Colombia. When exactly did you do that? And did you feel like the audience... Let me tell you why I'm asking this question. I feel like when I get back on stage in person after a pandemic and after, in the United States, the social justice movement and all of these things, everybody's so emotional and kind of sensitive and in need of joy. So there's a lot going on in Colombia. So what did you feel the audience different from before, where now everybody kind of like needs it a little bit more? What was that like?
Yes, I think it was a huge relief of feelings and emotions from both, from performers, from audience members, from even the tech team from the theater, like they were so happy to be able to have a group there and to set up lights and to move ladders and to plug the projector, and they were amazing and helpful and all these things. And then the audience, I don't know. It was a very cool moment in general. Yeah.
That's what we had our last night that we were open. We knew was the last night we were going to be open, and so it had fewer people but a different energy, where I think all of us were savoring that feeling and just so happy to be there. So I'm looking forward to what the reverse feeling will be like. In Orlando at the Fringe, apparently the audience is a little out of control. They've been getting up and dancing during like musical transitions and participating in shows that have zero invitation to do so, and they've had to remind people. And they've had Orlando Fringe forever. Like, the audiences understand how to behave there, and I think it's very much like we all need a giant party and to dance together. I think there's something. Yeah. So, there's so much tension. You said there's in Colombia, how many nights of strike? Where are you? There's a lot of political unrest there right now.
Yes, the political situation and social situation is quite big right now. Today is we are completing 1 month of demonstrations, strikes. In all the country and all the stuff that comes around that.
Yeah, and I think like I think that's everywhere. There's just been such high tensions, and a lot of good is coming from the protests and the demonstrations. So I don't want to bemoan those at all, but I also feel like we all could use another way to release some of this intensity, and just dancing and moving our bodies is something we don't do as much alone. Like people in their rooms. I hope people have been happy, but just to dance and yell together, I feel like is so important. Fawad, go ahead.
No, just was going to say that I think artists are going to be a very important part of society after all this big change that is happening in humanity in many different levels. Because I think it's not just like, okay, there is a pandemic happening, or we are at the end of a pandemic, but I think we are facing like a big spiritual change or
energetic shifts.
Exactly. And somehow, I don't know why, but I feel artists are going to be very important in this new process.
I agree, because we have to redefine some of the social norms that made life faster and more effortless for some. But, you know, in terms of status, when you walk down the street, who's going to move aside is a unconscious status evaluation. Who's continuing straight and who's going to move aside, and who's going to open a door for whom, and is that okay, right? All these new boundaries, and a lot of it I feel is growing pains from integration. Like, we are integrating more both in real life and especially online. We have to deal with people that we never might have had to deal with, and we have to learn how to communicate a lot of different ways. So something I'd love to hear your opinions on, because you are such thoughtful and physical performers, is that I talk a lot about it's a Joe Bill exercise that I've adapted, actually. It's one of your ones where you have to stay a certain distance. You get a random number and you have to say. And so if I have 1 and Joe has 10, he has to try to stay 10 feet away from me, and I have to try to stay 1 feet from him. And so the dance and tension that's created. And what that reminds me of is I took a Navajo Indian anthropology class in college, and a Navajo's personal bubble generally is about 10 feet, which makes sense because there's a big area. And so there's more space there. And my professor used Arabs as the exact opposite. He said, Arabs always stand close enough to smell you. Which rang super true to me as an Arab person with an Arab family. I was like, yeah, we do. We like very close talkers. So if you took a Navajo person and you put them in a room with an Arab person that they both subscribe to these generalizations, and you ask them, it's exactly that same dance that's happening. And I've had to learn to give people more space. I'm not perfect at it, but I have learned that I need to pay attention to it. And what's rough is that the Navajo is like, why won't this person leave me alone, right? I'm feeling invaded. I'm feeling threatened. I'm feeling, what's the word? Like, but just this person's trespassing on my boundaries. And then the Arab is the one, I think, who's like, why doesn't anyone like me? Because it's just like...
Yeah. And I think you're right. You're right about the artists helping in all of this, Felipe, because we're used to having to work in each other's energy bodies and emotional bodies. And I think that just the average person who's not having to work on these things constantly, or at least didn't work on these things before the pandemic, is probably really out of their element right now. You know,
it's also this thing that improvisation offers kind of a playground for adults. It's like one of the few places where I think it's safe for adults to play and to be free and to be childish and stupid without being judged and without, like, I'm improvising, I'm in this theater class, this space to behave in certain ways and to, like, release a lot of this tension. And as Felipe was saying, that when that moment of audience and performers get together, there's such a big release from both sides. And I think in the world after the quarantine and the pandemic, it's going to be very important to rebuild these communities and this sense of playing with others and being together.
I agree. I think that's why we have had such upheaval within the improv community as well, because we do need to make sure that it's safe for everybody to be included in this process itself. Because what I was surprised, I did a what to expect from improv classes, just a little video to try to help ease people's minds. And I interviewed a lot of people who had been through our training center. And a lot of people said that what they got most out of it was awareness of their own feelings, which surprised me because I'm nothing but feelings. So that wasn't the lesson that came to me through improv.
I think there's at least 3 of us here that are.
But that's a scary thing if you haven't been in touch with your feelings, to suddenly become aware of your feelings, and to make sure that people are safe to be uncomfortable, right? And to learn where you need to expand your circle of comfort, and where you don't need to expand it, but where you need to hold a stronger boundary. I guess we're just talking about boundaries in general, right?
And communicating them, right? Because if we're all in our own little isolated communities and cultures, then the expectation is, everybody understands. But now, because we're interacting online and so much conversation is about what are your boundaries, what are your limits, how can we be accessible? Something to me that is happy to you is threatening. And so to be able to express your boundaries while also being curious about somebody else's, in the mind and the heart of an artist, through love, not through fear, is really, like, if we can crack this code, this is, and play together and be respectful, this is what's going to, I think, help us, like Felipe was saying, as artists, help us say, okay, we're no longer isolated. We can all play together. We can be an example for everybody who comes to watch us, who's been hearing this conversation about, understanding and respecting each other's cultures and space and stuff like this. I think that's going to be something that is important. And I will plug in this moment. So Felipe and I do a show in French, in very bad French, called the Disciplinos. and we only perform it in France, and we only speak French. And so, and we didn't know why people liked it. In fact, we thought this is going to be a disaster, maybe. But I think I've talked about it before, but do you want to talk about Felipe? Because this is when I really valued Felipe's physical style. I always love watching him. But if we're going to say we will only speak French, and I'm on stage with Felipe, and it's how we physically behave, like me cueing off of him, that taught me in the show how to be. So Felipe, would you mind talking about our show en français or in English?
I feel a little bit disappointed when you say in a very bad French, because I've always thought it's a very good French.
But this is how we behave. When we walk on stage, we say we are French. I have very bad French. You
Okay,
have very good clown skills.
Now.
Okay, good.
Yes. The show is really, really fun, and it was like putting us both in a very let's put ourselves in troubles. It's like this sounds completely crazy to do, like very irresponsible to do a show like this, so let's do it. And yeah, it's, of course, I think everybody have seen Joe performing. He's not the most physical improviser in the world. So I think
He's
it's a really...
second most physical.
Third, maybe third.
Second most physical improviser in the world.
Joe Bill. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to to create from that, from just pure communication and pure teamwork and just getting each other's backs and putting ourselves in trouble and try to find a way to get out of the trouble.
That's amazing. And your show with Sarah Michelson is the show that I saw, and you are silent. The two of you playing together, not Danielle and Felipe, not Joe Bell, and Sarah is DJing. How did that show? Because she lives in Edmonton, Winnipeg. She lives in Winnipeg. So how did that all start up? Do you want to tell us, Danielle?
They're doing the silent show now.
They're doing the you go. Here's what I love about both of you, and I will tell you, like we've been in together a handful of times, like 3, and always I notice that you both are the most open, observant. You are both willing to sit there silently forever, and you're taking everything in, and I can see that you're watching and you're listening with such great detail. So anyway, Danielle, why don't you tell us about that show with you and Sarah?
Well, we met Sarah in Germany, in a festival in Germany, and she was, from the very first moment we saw each other, it was like, she's great. We were friends immediately, and then we were just hanging out, and then when we went to Canada, Felipe and I went to Canada to play there, and they said, okay, you're playing tonight. And we haven't had like a plan for a show. And then we saw that Sarah was there. So it was like, let's ask Sarah to play with us and see what happens. And she was very happy to play with us, and we were very happy that she was playing with us. So we did this show, and during that show we did like a collection of little scenes, but we did maybe 2 scenes, I think, that were silent, and there was such a good feeling after that, that was like the first time we did silent, I mean like non-speaking improvisation with her scores. And after that, Felipe will tell you what happened next.
Yes, after that we went to a bar and we were having some beers, and Daniel and me, we've been doing improv for a while. And we used to do like silent movie style, and we loved, of course, all the physical stuff. And that day we were in the bar talking, and we came with this idea, we should do a show together. Do you think we are able to do a long form without words, with you doing the music? Asking Sarah. And then I think again that was like a very crazy idea, so we said, let's do it.
Right.
And
of course,
there were those things in life that, you know, like these connections, and we knew that time we were in Edmonton in the summer, and we knew that the 3 of us were invited to Würzburg in October in the same year. So we said, okay, let's ask the director of the festival, which was Nadine Antler. So I said, okay, I will ask her to see if she's interested. And of course, she said yes. And then we had a big problem. Okay, we are going to do a show, but we live in Colombia, you live in Canada. So we started a very interesting process. We did a lot of research. Daniel and me were rehearsing here in Bogota, doing stuff, sending stuff to Sarah, sharing movies, music, books, everything. And then we met in Würzburg for the first show. We had one rehearsal. And we did that one first show there. And it was a lot of fun. It was very good feedback from the audience. And I guess in that time, we didn't expect that show was going to tour all around the world for 5 years or 6 years.
That's awesome. And it's just, especially I think in a festival situation, it's such a breath of fresh air to have a wordless show because there's so many words in most improv.
So many shows and so many words and so much to take in. And that sounds like you could just feel them in the show versus hear them. That's great.
And they're really good. Like, it's not just, oh, let's do a wordless show. Amazing. There's no words. Like, these guys are good. And what might not be communicated, I want to make clear, Sarah is a DJ.
Yes.
So, like, she has a whole booth set up for people not, who aren't familiar. And she's a genius. And her partner, Tyler, is also a genius DJ.
Yeah. And they have and they also have a whole system to their music. So it's at their fingertips in terms of mood and style and genre. So they can very quickly access and play through that voice of DJing. For sure.
And all of those.
Say again?
Sorry. All of those things have been very exciting to explore during all of these years. They have had all of these different moments of expanding and contracting and understanding things about music, working with Sarah and doing all sorts of experiments and trying things with Felipe in different parts of the world too. Being able to travel with this show and seeing what is happening with improvisation and how it has an impact on us and the show we want to present. It's been a fantastic ride. Like, I think now about that show that we did, that was such a special show, a special night, the first time we did Speechless, but so many things that happened after that became such an incredible planet of imagination and things that you could explore for a lifetime.
That's amazing. And usually, what's your preferred stage setup? Is it blocks? Is it chairs? Is it nothing? What's an ideal stage for you?
I think one thing.
Good. I've got one of those.
But it's also interesting to play in. We have played in very tiny spaces too. One time we played on a table on a university, and it was just on top of a table, and we were bringing chairs, and this table was just rocking like that, which was also super fun.
Yeah.
I think part of playing.
Go for it. Please continue.
Part of playing in different stages, I think the fun thing of it is like when we get there, we are looking like, okay, can we hang from this pole? Can we jump under this seat? What kind of chairs do they have? Would they take my weight and Felipe's weight on top of this chair at the same time, or would they break? And then it's just building with all of this. It's kind of like going into a different toy store every time and seeing what do they have in there.
Yeah. I love that, especially because we do tend to play on such small stages and people don't move a lot. To just go into a room and say, how can I engulf this? And you know who else does that? I don't know if you're fans of Big Frida, who's the bounce queen of New Orleans, but she...
I want to know her.
So you do want to. If you don't know Big Frida, you need to know Big Frida. But Big Frida tours with dancers who kind of mix twerking and African dance traditions together, which is amazing. But they'll twerk. They'll come into a space and attack that space. If there's a little window, this woman can crawl up in it, make herself this big, stick her butt out, and still twerk to the very fast rhythm for a very long time. So everyone needs to check out Big Frida if you're not aware. There's a TV series about Big Frida, Frida. Great. What you had another question, Elise?
Yeah, I have an observation to tie back to something else we were saying, and also a question. So the observation ties back to when we were talking about being able to be in our feelings as artists and emotions and all of that, and feeling safe to do that, or not going through fear. And I think before that even happens, like, we have to create a space first in service of us being able to do that, right? And I think this silent show, and the way that they just operate, and even the way that you just described how you see that they're so observant, Stacy, it shows that they create a space for each other first, is what I'm hearing. Like, they're so aware, even here, like the two of you are so aware of each other. Like, when you ask a question, you just wait to feel it out first and see who's going to talk first. And I think that that's so important before we even get into conversations about people surpassing their fears in certain spaces. Like, we need to do that first. That big, but like nuanced, specific thing that the two of you do, which is you hold space before you do anything. So that's something that I'm seeing and that I'm learning from the two of you. My other question is, I would love to hear about, like, pick one of your shows that you've done silent, and what would you say was the storyline, or like, after the show, did you two have a different idea of what was going on and then you still played it, or like, what was the story? Give me an example of a story that you would have in that show without talking, right? I mean, talk now, but I'm saying
okay.
Yeah, could you recreate that show for us in its entirety?
Maybe I think you agree, Daniel. The one show that stuck in our brains from Amsterdam. Maybe you want to share that one.
That was a very special. I mean, there's so many shows and moments. I have a diary of speechless shows where I write what happened in each show, and it has become like a very cool place to go and revisit shows and to see things that are repeating.
Yeah.
But
he's locking up.
No.
I love that idea of a journal, though, of actually
Totally.
journaling each one. Are you still there, Danielle?
No, he's there. He's back.
Kinda.
That's a perfect
Daniel!
expression.
Daniel.
There he is.
There he is. That's a great expression. Very thoughtful. Makes me only more want to know what he was about to say. You might need to.
He's talking about the silent show. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
I will continue as he comes back. So that show, I think we have very special shows that we remember for different reasons, and some are very strong in comedies, or I'm very strong in storytelling, or stuff like that. But that one in Amsterdam was really cool because it had a very cool mix, and there was the life story of a father with a daughter. Mm-hmm. And we saw the first scene was the father reading book stories to his small daughter, and the last scene of the show was the daughter, when she's a grown up, reading a book to her father as she's dying. And I remember that it was very moving and like,
I'm literally crying now.
when we bow and everything, we went off stage, and then we came to the stage, and there were like, for real, like 10 people still sitting there, hugging and crying, and it was really, really, really strong. And then you can tell all the story, and then people were saying like, we can't believe that we saw that story.
Yeah.
And we have all the dialogues and the conversations, but then we realized that you were using no words for 1 hour and a half or something like that.
Wow.
Right. So it didn't even occur to them that you weren't talking. They were in the story, and then they realized after. Amazing.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And that's something that for us is the same. Sometimes after the show we are talking, and oh yes, and when you said that, and then it's like, of course we didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was another show that I just remembered in Edmonton, and it starts with a hospital room with 2 babies in their, I don't know how they are called in English, like in these fish tanks.
Yeah. Yeah, in English it's called a fish tank. No, incubator.
But you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the same in Spanish.
Thank you, because
basically.
I didn't know the answer to that myself. I started, you know what I said? When you said in English it's a fish tank, I'm like, una pecera. I started answering it in Spanish.
So
like
basically in Spanish is incubadora, so it's almost the same.
Okay.
The thing is that this
Gracias, Rita.
these 2 guys meet from their fish tanks and they become friends.
Oh.
That's the first scene, right? The last scene is they both very old. One of them is in a wheelchair and the other one is like with a cane, getting naked, jumping into a lake for swimming, completely happy about life. And Sarah with the music is just wonderful. So it has this movie feeling, because Sarah really, really, I don't know, it's a team of 3. Of course, I'm telling you the story, and in the story you can only see the 2 improvisers, but Sarah is the rest. So it's just wonderful.
And how long are your shows?
And Daniel is back.
Yes, Daniel is back.
Daniel, you missed him telling the story about the show in Amsterdam and me like basically sobbing. Thank you. That's what you missed.
And then we talked about the one where you were fish in a fish tank.
But did he but wait. Did he tell you about the one with the cloud?
No.
No, tell that story.
That was amazing. Because we did this little interview before starting the show about things that people remember about their childhood and about these special moments in their lives. And this woman talks about this piece of fabric that she kept in her pocket, thinking that it was a piece of cloud that she owned when she was a kid, and she like really cherished that piece of of fabric, and she told us it wasn't such a big thing. It was just this amazing thing in her imagination. So then we started building this show, and we built.
I have to say something there before you continue. The mother told her in one point that, oh, this is not a piece of cloth. This is just piece of clothes, of clothes. Mm-hmm. And she was very disappointed. Remember that?
Yes. Her mom kind of spoiled this magical imagination of the fabric being a piece of cloth. So then we made this story, and in the middle of this story, there's this guy who is flying a kite, and the kite kind of gets stuck, and he pulls down the kite, but he pulls down a cloud. And in that time, we used to have like this blackboard where we will write certain ideas that the audience will give us. But in this theater, they didn't have a blackboard. So they gave us a block of sheets. So when Felipe started pulling the string of this kite, I just took one sheet and made a cloud.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then the whole show was about this guy having this relationship with this cloud, and they were going out for drinks together, and they were falling in love, basically, this guy with this cloud. And at the end, there's a storm. I think Sarah brought in this soundtrack of effects of a storm. So the cloud wants to go, but this guy doesn't want to let this cloud go.
Oh my gosh.
And finally they hug like this, and this guy opens the window, and the cloud goes out, and I go out with this paper into the audience, and I give this cloud to this woman.
Oh.
Wow.
She thought she was going to make it without crying. You just ruined it.
You just broke our show.
Yeah. Amazing. That's beautiful.
God.
Did she cry? Cool. Did she cry when you gave her the cloud? Yeah.
The whole theater was crying. It was like...
Amazing.
This is why I love these guys.
Yes. For sure. So beautiful. Well, we've been talking for a long time. Oh, I did have just a quick question was, how long are your shows generally? Do you do it in sort of 25 and 50 minutes, or have you done 90-minute sets?
Normally 1 hour from, let's say, 45 minutes to 1 hour 15, around that.
That to sustain an hour 15 minutes with no dialogue is an amazing feat. So if people want to keep in touch with you to see what you're up to, where can they go? Is there anything you want to share that you have coming up, either of you?
Well, right now I'm working on this course, like for the Improv Learning Center.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So it was you. It was not Felipe. Me too. Okay. Great.
So yeah, it's challenging. No, it's strange to do these things and to record yourself, and I am doing a very personal thing, I think. So it's been a bit difficult sometimes. I feel a bit vulnerable because I'm actually talking about these journals and about these diaries and about having a diary and a book to have like a document recording all of your process in improvisation, and how I'm trying to divide it in like different sections of things that this book has become, like a place to grow ideas, a place to record and document what has happened, a place to be myself and to have discussions with myself, a place to heal. So it's been a challenging thing, but also very interesting.
Wow, I can't wait. I will definitely, just when you mentioned it earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go back in time 20 years. At least I can start now for the next 20 years. But what a brilliant idea. I wish I had such a thing. So I'm glad you're going to be sharing that. And anything else, Felipe, that you'd like to share?
I will be teaching a movement, like expressive movement workshop for Unexpected Productions online.
Oh, great.
In June. And soon I think I will launch like a magical realism workshop as well in English. So those two things at the moment.
Oh, my heart. I love you both so much. I respect and admire you both so much. I so appreciate you giving us your time and your wisdom and insights today. Joe, Elise, anything you wanted to add before we close up today?
No, thank you so much. This was so lovely.
Thank you. Well, we'll see you in Portland as soon as possible. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching Inside Improv. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, our pleasure.
Thanks for being here. It was great.
Inside Improv.
This has been Inside Improv.
Improv.